I said, "What's wrong with you, man? Is there something I can help you with?" He just started bawling. What's neat is I got him fixed. He purchased the maintenance, fixed the system. Before I got out of the neighborhood, he called the office. He blasted us on every social media. He put, "Today, Michael didn't just fix my system, he fixed me."
Have you always been a top performer?
Art's name for me was the roller coaster kid. It's because I would do amazing and then I would do really bad.
How do you get the client where they are like, yeah, I'd like to have one of your comfort advisors come out and talk to me?
I spend 15 minutes diagnosing a system. I spend an hour diagnosing the customer.
There's young techs out there. There's some veterans out there. What kind of message would you like to leave them?
If you make everything a challenge, my kid's shoe breaks, I challenge myself to go that night and buy him a new pair of shoes. If the weather sucks, I challenge myself to do great anyways. I don't stress out about anything because I view everything as a challenge.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the Wisdom of Wrench podcast, otherwise known as the WOW podcast. Boy, we've got a great show today. Super excited. I just want to remind everybody what the objectives are of this beautiful podcast. Number one, we are going to be showcasing the very top talent inside of Wrench. The GOATs, the best of the best. The second thing that we're going to be doing during the podcast is talking about building culture through a common language, a common service language. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Well, my guest today, and I'm really excited about it, his name is Michael Mullins. And helping me in studio today is my partner in crime, Amanda Meyer, who you all know. So we're excited to have Michael Mullins. This is the premier, the best GOAT of all GOATs. What a gift we get to hear from Michael today. I see him smiling. I see him blushing. He is the pride of Ragsdale. And I just want to share with you, Michael, I'm going to really cake it on here because it is so good. Let me just share with you all some statistics about Michael Mullins. In 2022, he finished number one in tech-generated leads. In 2021, he finished number one in tech-generated leads. In 2022, he finished number one in win rate, tech-generated leads, and number 4 in new membership. In 2023, he finished number one in win rate, tech-generated leads, and was 3rd in new memberships. In this year to date, he's number 1 in win rate, he's number 2 in tech-generated leads, and he's number 1 in new memberships. It's almost breathtaking. It's not even almost breathtaking, Michael. It's just incredible what you've been able to do. And we are so delighted and honored to have you on the podcast with us. So thank you for joining us, Michael. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for wanting to know me.
Yes. Thank you. And there's a lot to know. So what I want to do, Michael, is I want to just get right into having our listeners or our viewers get to know a little bit more about you. So if you would just kind of start by, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. Who is Michael Mullins, and what the heck is in the water in Atlanta?
We're asked that all the time. We grow monsters around here. Well, thank you again. But a little bit about me, and I don't think I can go any earlier than this, but I came into this world fighting. So until I was 1 year old, according to my mother, that almost died multiple times, I stayed in the hospital with double pneumonia. And I think she said 8 times. And then a doctor that I still appreciate today accidentally found out what was wrong with me. I don't remember what it is, but got me fixed. So I think that's where my fighting mentality comes from, because I had to start that way. And then where I came from, best way to explain it is I grew up in a decent neighborhood in a really bad area. But I don't regret that at all. I wouldn't change that for anything, because I am and I'll give you an example if you want it. But so, the area I lived, 1 in 4 houses was government housing. So what would happen is, my childhood was pre-internet. pre-pagers, pre-cell phones. You know, my generation, it was the last of the generations of you're not to be seen and heard until the streetlights come on. So you had to make friends or play by yourself. So in that government housing, people would move in 3 or 4 months. You go to knock on the door, the front door is open, half of their belongings are gone, and you never see them again. So, and they're usually where the families with kids, because the neighborhood was kind of an old neighborhood. So it was a lot of senior citizens and then government assisted families. So with that, and what's funny is I have a friend, Sam Dodd, that used to work here, but now he is the leader of another organization. And there's been a couple of years he's beat my numbers. And we grew up together a few houses away from each other. So I think there's something to this. But when you would have to make friends really quick and be good at it because they weren't going to be around very long. And a lot of those kids came from even worse areas that when they moved into the area, their defense mechanism was they would find somebody and punch them in the mouth to let everybody know that they're not going to be on the bottom of our pecking order. So you had to also learn how to avoid that and deflate that situation and become friends with them at the same time. Because Sam and I were always outnumbered, always. So I think that's where the quick thinking on my feet comes from, and the ability to deflate a bad situation. Like if a service call goes south, I think that's why I'm able to have the customer satisfaction I have, is because I can fix it real fast, because I didn't want to be the one getting punched in the mouth. Yeah.
Yes.
That was more Sam's cup of tea.
Yeah. I refer to that as mental agility. It sounds like you've got a tremendous amount of mental agility that when you get, kicked in the mouth or punched in the face, whatever, you're able to be like, hey, okay, we'll chuck and jive and we'll move with that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And hey, Mike, to date,
nobody wants to be alone, huh?
Oh, to date, how many times have you been punched in the face by a client? Just want to get the count for the audience.
Let me give you a funny story that you asked that. And I don't know if Ken and Art's going to like it too much, but I use it all the time because I'm very proud of it. So I went to a customer's house and he was drunk as a skunk, and he tried to self-repair his system. And I get there and it's a heat pump, and he's changed the thermostat. It's all wired improperly. He's done blown his transformer. And I didn't want to start telling him everything that was wrong because I knew how drunk he was. He wasn't going to keep up with everything that he had done. So because I keep walking back and forth to the thermostat, to the system to see what's going on, we're walking down the driveway. I'm walking on the sidewalk and he says, "Hey, I don't think you know what you're doing." And I laughed and I said, "What?" And he goes, "You don't know what you're doing." And just me being who I am, I think he was more forceful than that. I put my tool bag down and I said, "Well, sir, I think you're a drunk a-hole." And I said, "And this call is going to go one or two ways depending on you right now." I said, "Either I'm going to dip my tools and I'm going to leave. And when I tell the dispatch manager why I'm leaving, you're going to have to call another company to help you." I said, "Or you can chill out and relax, and I'll have your air conditioning going here in just a few minutes." And he kind of was like, "Go ahead." Well, so I fixed all of his mess. Noticed that the first problem was it was a blown capacitor. That's all that was wrong, and he created the rest of it. So he was standing over my shoulder in the garage by the unit, and I turned to him and I said, "So this is all that that happened." I said, "I'm not going to charge you for all of that." I said, "But you are going to have to pay for the transformer and the capacitor, which was the original problem." I said, "But before I do that," I said, "What's wrong with you, man?" I was like, "Why are you so angry?" I said, "Is there something I can help you with?" And man, his face started quivering and he lost it. He just started bawling. And so I stood there for about 20 seconds or so hugging him. To the point where he had my shoulder wet. And come to find out, he came home from work. His wife took half of his stuff, disappeared. The house was empty. She took the kids with him, moved to another state, and left them for another man. And so he had started drinking the moment he gets off work, blackout drunk. And what's neat is I got him fixed. He purchased the maintenance, fixed the system. Before I got out of the neighborhood, he called the office. he blasted us on every social media app and praised us. But why I'm so prideful of that call is he put, today, Michael didn't just fix my system. He fixed me. That's all he said. So, yes, that could have been a punch in the mouth. Luckily, it wasn't.
What a great story. What a great story, Michael. Appreciate you sharing that. So good. So let's go back. How did you get into the trades? What was it that guided you in that direction?
I did so well in school that college would be paid for if I wanted it. And I went eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and I picked out heating and air. That's how that happened.
Yes.
Seriously, that's how it happened.
So you did do well in school, or were you being facetious?
No, I did well.
You did well in school, and you could have gone to any college, but you decided HVAC or heating and air conditioning.
I probably couldn't have went to any college, but it was paid for me. But the academically, it wasn't very hard, but behaviorally, I struggled in school. So what I did is I left school, went and took my GED, and 3 weeks later I was in college for heating and air.
Wow.
It's time for me to grow up.
And then your journey in HVAC started in trade school.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
well, I immediately that week went and started working for a heating and air company.
Oh, okay. So you got your GED and you went to go work for a heating and air company. And did you go to trade school?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
you did. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and then did you become a service technician right out of the gate, or how long have you been in that role?
No. I was so young that I started out as I was really, really skinny back then and fit. So I was the one that got shoved up into the tightest part of the crawl space to hook the ducts up, and the other guys would pull me back by my ankles. That's where I started. And then I got into, install helper, and then I got into install lead. But I was so young, and Art had a good point, and I don't fault him for this, but I was ready to be a service technician, but I was so young, and there was no young service technicians back then. Now there's more there are way more now, but he wasn't ready to put me in that role because of what the customers how they would judge me before they even knew what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I left and went and worked for one of my friends for about 6-7 months, and I wasn't happy there with their ethics, and Art wanted me back. So I came back, and I've been back ever since. But that's how I became a service technician, is because he's like, fine, we'll just figure this out.
Yeah. And how many years ago?
We'll make it work.
How many years ago was that?
Oh, to service technician, 16, 17, 18. Yeah. Okay. Probably around 18.
Okay. Wow. That's great. So going back a little bit, I want to hear a little bit more about your family. You mentioned before we got on air, one of the things you do every morning is wake your kids up. Tell us about your family.
Oh, man. This is going to tie into probably a topic you're going to ask me later, but I struggle with this part because I'm so proud of my family that I find myself not being able to stop talking once I start talking about them. Because I'll start with baseball, then go to football, then I'll go to their grades, and then I'll go to how big they are and how tall they are, and they work out every day. I mean, you know what I mean? Like I cannot stop talking. I talk about how my wife become a devout Christian and quit drinking and quit smoking, and she inspires me to be like her. I'm just not as tough as she is yet. But that my family is man. So I just told you everything about my wife. And my wife, she knows how to make me not stress. Because we've been married 20 years now. Been together 25.
And what's her first name?
Candace.
Yeah.
She's the one Amanda made get up in front of everybody and made everybody clap for her.
Yes, I remember that.
You got to give it up to the real goats. You know?
She is the real goat.
She is. There's nothing like home field advantage, baby.
I don't stress about anything in life. Nothing. I stress about nothing. I worry about nothing. I don't even let the thought in my head finish its sentence. if it's a negative thought. I just don't allow it.
Have you always been that way?
No.
Okay.
Excuse me. I built my house at 19 years old. I had no business doing that. I had to work 100 hours a week for everybody or to afford it. So the first 10 years we were poor. We were super poor. We ate noodles. We couldn't afford to have kids yet. Mayonnaise sandwiches with cheese. But she got to where she would always say, anytime something got hard, she would say, it's all right. You've always found a way to get us through it. And then God provides. And she said that so much that I started believing it. And so like, I don't stress about anything. That's who she is. So yeah, when a man says she's the true goat, she's the true goat. But with my kids, I couldn't be more proud of my children. They're smart. They're strong. They're athletic. They have great souls. They're polar opposites of each other, though. My oldest son, academically, he has all hundreds in all the highest classes that our state government will let you be in. He has a 4.0, what is it? What is that called? GPA, something like that? Yeah. So he's 16, about to start college.
And what's his name?
Landon Mullins. He's a monster. He's the one that he's 6'4" or 5 now, works out 3 hours a day, 6 days a week. He could beat me up. But, so where he's that gifted academically and athletically, physically, my youngest boy, my 14-year-old Lawson, he has a superpower. I mean, he's in all advanced classes too, but he's not striving for hundreds. He doesn't care. It doesn't interest him. But he has a superpower. Lawson can't fail. He has never failed at anything at all ever in his life. When he was born, he was holding his head up the night he was born. He was climbing counters before he's a year old. He fails at nothing. And that is a true superpower. He doesn't fail at football. He doesn't fail at basketball. He doesn't fail his grades. He doesn't fail. And, it's hard to be a father and look up to your children. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
You can look up to your spouse. You can look up to your elders, but I look up to my children. That's crazy.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful
thing. See what I mean? This whole podcast could be about my family.
I love it. I love it. So that's great. Thank you for bringing us up to speed on your family. Tell me a little bit about, let's go back to what you said about, I asked you, did you always worry? Or were you always in the situation that you're in right now where you were able to let go of things? Have you always been a top performer since the day that you started there? Did you come out of the gate at Ragsdale and just take off?
No. I was well into my career before I pushed myself. I think I told you one time when we were doing something else, Art's name for me was the roller coaster kid. It's because I would do amazing and then I would do really bad. And then I would do amazing and I would do really bad. I was not consistent at all. I think what happened, it was a series of events that all happened at the same time. My kids were, starting to watch what I was doing, see who I was, mimic me. And I just wasn't fulfilled at all. I get up, go to work, come home, help around the house, go to bed, get up, go to work. I was empty. My soul was empty. I don't know I'm not sure of the words to use, but, so I wasn't happy with the role model I was being for my children. Like they would have said, "Oh, Dad's great," I'm sure, but they wouldn't have been inspired by me. I was just coasting through life, and I also, at that same time of feeling that way, was met a man named Andy Holt that he runs this thing called an outdoor university, and it's based on culture. Kind of like what you're doing now. Culture is very important. Culture is everything. I'll stop that story real quick to tell you this. When I was thinking about what you're trying to do now, culture is your set point in life. Whatever your culture is, that's going to be your medium. Something bad happens, you're going to be sad, but you're going to come back to where your culture's set. Something great happens, you're going to be really happy, but you're going to fall back to the culture you've created in your life. So culture is the foundation to everything, everything. So I'm very proud of what you're doing. But at that same time, so I went to that outdoor university, and what's funny is there was like 14 of us there from all different companies across the country. And he has a unique way of breaking you down around the fire that he sets you up to. So what's all your complaints about Ragsdale? And you'd answer. What's all your complaints about your family? You would answer. Why is management so unfair? And you would answer. And he's setting you up for this because he would break it down and put it right back on you. Well, what did you do to make it different? And it's like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, this dude's paid propaganda from Ragsdale. You know what I mean? But he wasn't. He was fixing us. And all 14 people that went to that class, every one of them became managers, opened their own companies, or were their company's top performers within the next 2 years. And it created lifelong friends. But he would do stuff like, there was a guy there that worked with us. His name's Russ, and he has become a lifelong friend of mine, even though he runs a commercial company now. And we were there, and I forget what Andy said to provoke it, but I leaned forward and I looked over at Russ and I said, okay, I said, my answer is, Russ, I don't like you very much, man. I was like, I think you're kind of a sleaze bag. I said, I don't like the way you sell, because he sold more maintenances than me, so I was kind of jealous of him. And I said, I don't like the way you sell your maintenances and all that. Well, Russ didn't say anything. Andy didn't say anything. We kind of moved on. The next morning, we all had to go out and go fishing in 2-man boats. Guess who put in my 2-man boat? It was me and Russ. So 4 hours later, we worked it out and became lifelong friends from it.
Wow.
And the third situation that happened to me was Nexstar was thrown in my lap. So all three of those things clashed at the same time, and they're all, those two were both culture based. So that's how I started pushing myself. I implemented what Andy taught me. I implemented Nexstar, and I drove myself to set a better example to my children. That was when it took off.
What a gift. What a gift. What a great story. Mm-hmm. So you said implementer. You implemented versus being inventor. How much of the stuff that you're doing today did you invent versus what you learned from others and implemented?
Nothing. Everything I accomplish is because I listen to what other people, like what you're doing now. If people listen to you, this is going to be very helpful to them. I honed my skills through listening to podcasts before they were even popular, staying up till 2:00 in the morning, reading books on psychology and sales. And all their examples and their wisdom, I just implemented it. Nothing that comes from me.
Anybody specifically you listen to or that you can share with us?
No, this was so long ago that I don't think any of those podcasts are even around anymore. You'd have to go archive them.
They're probably videotapes and CDs and
VHS, guys.
Yeah. VHS, yes.
It's gonna make a comeback.
Was it?
I mean, it's not just like from podcasts and stuff. It's like the last year at Las Vegas. I poked fun at you for this, but when you were in your blazing outfit, you still found a way to do somersaults across the stage in front of 400 people, in front of millionaires, billionaires, and people like me. And you go rolling back and forth across the stage. I learned from that. I use that as an example. And I implemented the way you acted that day and the way you dressed that day. I have implemented that into my life, into my service calls. Is just be fearless.
I love it. That's great. That's great. So share with me, what are some of the things that you're doing every day as the day goes along to stay inspired?
Oh man, that's a heavy one.
Or let me put it another way. You said Lawson has a superpower.
Yeah.
What's Michael Mullins' superpower?
Well, I do what I do because, like, what fulfills me. So, what keeps me inspired is fulfilling my soul. I think I said that earlier, but I like to give as much as possible. So, to the point where, like, my wife and I, if we've made a lot of money, people ask me all the time, they're like, "Why do you live in a 1,100 square foot house?" And if I have extra money, we'll be sitting at a restaurant, and either my wife or my kids or myself, we'll just pick a random family and pay for their dinner. If we have sick friends, sick coworkers, we try to give our money to them. We have families in the neighborhood. I raise chickens. So she gives our eggs away so fast that we buy eggs from the store and give our homegrown eggs away. So if it wasn't for what I do and push as hard as I pushed, I couldn't have that culture of giving around me. And I'll kind of give you an example like this. I'm very particular about my win rate, obviously. I protect it with everything I've got. So I went to a customer's house, and she was elderly. She had dogs in the garage, and it stunk so bad. There was feces everywhere. Well, I checked her system. It wasn't very old. She'd already bought all the recommendations years before that everybody's recommended. So I cleaned the system up, and I went and sitting on her couch and talking to her. And she kept talking about how ashamed she was of her garage being in that situation. So I said, well, it's up to you. I said, but if you want, I said, you can just pay me for miscellaneous, and I'll grab that water hose and I'll wash your garage out for you. And I washed her garage out, saved my win rate. I didn't charge her much, but that's the only thing she gave me. So as I was you say with your podcast, make yourself more interested than interesting. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I was doing. And because I was sitting there being interested in her, I seen she had a need, even though it wasn't heating and air, she had a need, and I took care of it. So it was a win-win. But when I was going to leave, she gave me a heavy tip, and I went home that night. I gave what she gave me to Lawson and told him how I got it and why I got it, and that this was a gift. And that Saturday we went to Walmart, and we're leaving Walmart, and there's a veteran with no legs ringing a bell for money. And we get walking through that buffer zone, the crosswalk, and Lawson stops. And I turn around and I said, "What's up?" He goes, "Nobody's giving that guy any money, Dad." And he remembered he had the $40 in his wallet. So he said, "Hold on a second." And he runs over to the veteran, and he gives the veteran $40. And man, the look on his face, the look on the veteran's face, he learned so much there. So, you're talking about culture. I use those service calls to create culture, because I was able to create a culture of giving from that one service call that went beyond, because when he gave that money to that veteran, other people stopped and walked over there and started giving that veteran money too. Mm. So he created a community culture because of that service call, because of that situation. And I couldn't do that if I didn't push the way I push now. Money means nothing to me. I don't even know what's in my bank account. Candace could tell you. She watches it like a hawk, but I don't. She has to just tell me when to slow down. She's like, slow down a little bit. Don't give it all away. But that's great. That's what inspires me. I can't do it without that. I can't be me without that. Mm-hmm. I can't be giving if I don't push.
Mike, I have to say that makes a lot of sense. You once told me the thing you were proudest of with all of your accomplishments in GOAT, the thing you were proudest of was the foundation you started at Ragsdale to help other families. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Thanks a lot. So here's where I cry. Andrew, get ready to cut this out. Went to a customer's house one time back in 2009. And long story short, I made a joke. I was like, "Did the rest of the family party without you?" Because the grandmother met me there. And when I said that, it caught me off guard, because she just started bawling. She started crying. And I'm like, oh man, what the hell did I just say? What, I said, what's wrong? And she said, no, the rest of the family's at the hospital because my grandson is fighting brain cancer. And, so I called, it hit me hard, and it was just a capacitor and something else. It was like $300, $200. So I called Art and I said, hey man, I said, if you'll donate this, part, I'll donate my time. And here's why. Well, I did that. And that night I was watching that show that used to come on, Extreme Makeover, Home Edition.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and this was before I made decent money. And I'm like, man, how can I do that? How can I help people when I need help, financially? And what's funny is, everything crashed in 2008. So we were all tight on money. And, I come in and I asked Art, I said, Art, after this meeting, can I get up in front of everybody? And he's like, yeah, but why? He's got a guard, make sure I'm not going to say something stupid. And, I told him why. And, he goes, Mike, he said, I get guys in here every day, just like you. He was like, don't get your hopes up and don't get your feelings hurt when you ask them and they don't have the means to help you. So I got up in front of everybody and I explained what I wanted to do. What I wanted to do, because I couldn't do it on my own, is make it to where all my coworkers that could would put money in every paycheck into a fund to help families with dying children. Because sadly we run into that. And man, everybody raised their hand and everybody started contributing. So it's grown now to where we don't just help families with dying children. We help families with dying spouses. We help people that are having to raise their 40-year-old special needs children, with heart condition. And that is my greatest accomplishment as a human being, I believe. But it's not me. It's Ragsdale, not the company, the people that make the company, because their money is the one that pays for all of it. I kind of like to stay in the backfield of it, because what I'll do is I'm just a chairman now. What I'll do is I'll make the people on the board pick a random dispatcher, CSR, somebody in accounting, and make them stand in the room on speakerphone when they call these people and let them know the shenanigans we've been up to and that we're going to pay for everything. And that way they can get that feeling of because unless you experience that, you don't know what that feels like. Mm-hmm. To have a mother that is trying to keep her child alive be told, hey, we care. We're going to give you something. And it's not financial based. We gave a millionaire, a family that was in a $3 million house, a free system that we paid for. They could have wrote a check for it easily, but that's not the point. The point is showing we care, So I did it without crying.
That's great. That's great.
Proud of you, buddy.
That's so good. What's the name of that foundation?
It's the Brody Bates. That was the little boy's name.
Okay.
It's the Brody Bates Fund.
That's great. So
he didn't win his battle. But this is 2009 he died, but I still keep in touch with his family and share our successes. I mean, it's not a small foundation. We've had the state send us letters of appreciation. We've been in the Cancer Society magazine. Art went to a doctor one time in Atlanta, and the doctor was telling him about how a heating and air company gave one of his patients a heating and air system, not knowing he was talking to the man that owns the company.
The man who owns the company. I love
story.
It. Art Ragsdale. God bless Art. Yes.
Yeah,
and
I love Art.
Great guy. Great. And it's wonderful to speak to the pride of Ragsdale. So let me just ask you, you mentioned something, and we've been talking about culture and the culture inside Ragsdale, the culture inside Wrench, and the common service language item that I'd love to get your feedback on so we can really begin to share this amongst all of the team members of Wrench, which is something you mentioned already, which is be more interested than interesting. Now, this common service language item that we talk about, it's important that everybody in the organization knows, okay, what that means, what my role, what it means for my role. And so when I say those words, be more interested than interesting, Michael, how does that relate to what you do every day?
As far as like a service call?
Yes.
Well, there's like one good way to make yourself be that way. Not necessarily to change the customer, but to change yourself is I'll find a fireplace hearth. I'll find the second step going upstairs or the second step on the porch, and I will purposely sit lower than them before I start talking to them. That way you make yourself become more a listener than a talker. I have a little stool that I ordered off of Amazon. It's a collapsible stool, and I keep it with me at all times, and I will sit on it if I have to sit lower than them. There's other ways. My buddy David Rowe at Booth Seating and Air, he's also a top contender. He's in the top 3 year after year. And props to him. He was a maintenance tech just a few years ago. Great guy. But when you're talking to him, he has this catchphrase that he doesn't even realize he's saying, but I picked it up and stole it from him. But everything you say, after you say it, he'll say, I got you. I got you. That is being more interested than interesting. He's doing it to me on purpose. We're walking through the Venetian in Las Vegas, and every time I finish a sentence, he's like, I got you. He's showing me he's listening to me. He's promoting me to want to say something else to him. So that's some examples of that.
Yes.
But I couldn't do what I do as far as like the Brody Foundation. You have to implement what you're trying to create here. You have to listen to them to the point where they will start not knowingly talking about their family. That's how you find out they have sick children. That's how you find out their spouse is sick. That's how you find out that something happened in their life. I mean, that's how you find out they have asthma and all that stuff for air cleaners and stuff. But in order to make the Brody Foundation, it's a voluntary thing. So the service technicians have to volunteer, nominate somebody, and then the board looks at it and we decide yes or no. Do we want to sneak somebody out there for a fake reason? Tell them we might have left a switch off so that we can go get measurements to know what we got to order. But without breaking the customer down like that, without your philosophy, we would have no nominations. Because if you just run in, run out, you didn't learn nothing about the customer. They're not going to tell you when you're like, hey, show me your thermostat. I'll be back in 5 minutes.
Right.
How would the Brody Foundation would be nothing. It wouldn't work.
Great. So be more interested than interesting from listening to you.
Right.
Sounds like it's about being a great listener. It's being about an active listener, letting the client know that you're listening to them, whether it's you finish with the comment that you were sharing, or reflecting back to the client what they shared with you so they know you heard. Whatever you need to do to let the client know that you heard them, that you're listening to them, that you're paying attention to them. Mm-hmm. The other thing I heard you say, which is something that I have shared many, many times, which is, it's funny that you do it. Let the client sit in the big chair and you sit in the small chair.
I love that you have a literal little chair that you bring with you.
Can we get?
I just think that's the best thing ever.
Can we get a photo of that? Like for the podcast, we're going to get a photo of that, and I'm going to have Andrew, our producer.
I think I have one. And the credit to this, the stool comes from Brian Stevens that works for us. He's Mr. Gadget. So every time he finds a new gadget, he sends it to us, and we all spend our money on it.
We're going to get that. We'll put that. We'll put that up. We'll put that up on the. I'll have Andrew put it up while we're. He'll put it up right now. I mean, he'll be able to edit that in. It's probably already up. It's already been up. So, thank you, Andrew. So, back on be more interested. We live in a world that is all about look at me. Notice me. and I'm talking about a Facebook world or a Instagram, look at me, notice me. And so how do you do the opposite? Are you on those? Are you on Instagram? Are you on Facebook? Are you on those things?
No, I have no social media. Zero. I mean, there's a Facebook out there with mine and my wife's name on it, but I've never looked at it. I don't know anything about it. We haven't had cable television in our house in 6 years, specifically because of the news. It's just not healthy for us, but I don't do no social. I'm behind the scenes guy. Most of my friends don't even know I'm as successful as I am. The people that we hang out with every Friday, their family has no idea. It's just not something talked about unless somebody else talks about it.
So good. So back on the common service language item. Be more interested than interesting. How has that contributed to your success at Ragsdale, with the people at Ragsdale, or with your clients?
I don't know if this fits, but one thing I love to do, and I do it intentionally, it's a every situation must. I can't let it escape one time. And I think this would apply to what you're saying, but like, say, there's a couple people here like James Edwards, and I've got Brian Stevens, I've got Karen Proctor, that I started with people like that because I really love who they are. You can see into their soul. You can see they're really good people. And so, like, if I'm standing in the COO's office and I'm butting into her and another person's conversation, if they say the name James, I will wait till the next moment they quit talking, and I'll go, man, I love James. He's just always there if you need him. Or somebody mentions Brian. I wait till they quit talking, and I'll say, man, Brian is such a good dude. I'm like, he has the answer for everything. Yeah, I love that guy. Miss Karen. So I mentioned Karen. I always make sure I say, I love Miss Karen. That's the sweetest woman that ever walked on this earth. Well, when you do that to people, instead of talking about yourself, and you go to the very top of bragging about them to use the word love, and then why you love them, the very next time somebody mentions Miss Karen's name, somebody that heard me say that is going to say, oh, she is so sweet. Then the next person's going to say it. Then the next person's going to say it. And then it gets to the point where all these new hires that don't know Miss Karen says, yeah, I heard she's a really sweet woman. I heard James can figure out anything. That to me, because if you'll do that with people that you work with, give it a year or two. Those people you will notice are getting promoted into higher management. They're getting voted as service technician of the year. Because people, when you brag on somebody else wants that feeling. They unconsciously want or subconsciously want to do the same thing you just did. So the next time they mention that person's name, they're going to do the same thing.
That's so good. So what it sounds like to me is you're very intentional with using your words to build people up.
I can't help it. I'm OCD. My brain's going a million miles an hour. I don't have time to not know what I'm already going to do.
Yeah.
I can't help but to think about it beforehand.
I love it. Let's talk more about like the actual call. You're on a call. You are having success building that relationship with the client, right? The client then typically wants to move forward with having somebody come out and talk to them about their replacement options, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you get the client there? How do you get them to the point where they are like, yeah, I'd like to have one of your comfort advisors come out and talk to me?
You just talk to them like a human being. I spend 15 minutes diagnosing a system. I spend an hour diagnosing the customer and give 30 minutes worth of solutions. But it's just talking to them, because you can know the gist of somebody's life within an hour of sitting on their couch. And but every situation is different. Not everybody needs a new system. You have to be willing to say to every customer, I've got the part on the truck and I can fix it. But then you have to also be honest with them, because like Art likes to say, if you were going to your sister's house that lived in the middle of Alabama, and there didn't used to be a good company there, but now we got one. But anyways, she doesn't know who to call, and she asked you to come look at it. She can't afford a breakdown. She's broke as a joke. You would go through that system with a fine tooth comb. You would make sure your sister's unit's not going to break down. Well, you have to do that with your customers too, because they're paying you. They think they're just paying you for a no heat, but watch how quickly you'll get blamed if there's a callback, So they want more than that no heat. So you're not being professional if you're not very thorough and you're not talking to them. You're not listening to the fact that if you pay attention long enough, she starts sneezing or wheezing. Mm-hmm. You got to be aware of your surroundings.
Is there something that you keep with you? Do you keep a notepad to take notes when you're listening to a client? What do you keep with you?
I recommend a lot of guys do that, but no, because like I told you an example a long time ago, about the drunken ballerina.
Let's talk about that. I've heard this before.
So when people ask me my advice and they're super technical, so they don't naturally have what I have from my experiences growing up, I tell them, man, you need to be a drunken ballerina when you get there. And everybody asks, the next question is, what the hell do you mean? So you have to pretend that you've had a couple shots and you're super relaxed. You're getting to that first date. You know what I mean? So you chill out. But when the drunken part is you don't care. You're not looking for something. You're just having a good time. You're there having a good time at their house. But the second part of that, the ballerina part, is ballerinas are very intentional. They're methodical. Everything they do has been practiced and rehearsed 5 bazillion times. Their body is just muscle memory at that point. So when you get there, you have to know everything you're going to accomplish while you're there, everything you're going to check. You're going to know that customer before you leave. You will know their name and their children's name and their spouse name before you leave. That's where the ballerina part comes from.
That's really good.
It's kind of a weird analogy.
I like it. Drunken ballerina. We could maybe make that a common service language. I love it.
Mike, is that your analogy? I credit that to you because you told us that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that one's me.
There we go.
Yeah,
I don't know where it came from.
Yeah,
I was talking to Stephen Smith, and God, I love that dude. He is. If I tell everybody all the time here, I'm like, if Art came to me and said, Michael, times have got rough, it can be you and one other person that works here, and it would be Stephen Smith. He's just such a funny, sweet guy, but he's so technical. He's so smart that sometimes it can be socially awkward. You know what I mean? He's that smart. He's kind of like Elon, but that's where that conversation with him, I remember where we were standing when I gave it to him, about 10 feet over there. And that's the first time I used that.
I love it. So let's go back into the call. You got the client that is now wanting to move forward to have a comfort advisor come out and talk to them. Okay. How do you prep the comfort advisor before they get there? What are some of the techniques and gifts that you could share that you do?
Well, we have a policy here where if that call's been flipped, you have to contact each other before you go.
Okay.
And that way you can say, the husband thinks this and feels that. This duct needs to be looked at. Here's an issue. There's an issue. Here's what they mentioned. They mentioned they're tight on money. So they just want a solution not the best solution. You just, anything that was told to you. If energy efficiency was a big deal, if they're an engineer, you want that, because your engineers typically want the best of the best. So, especially electrical engineers, but you have to relate all that to the consultant. But what's more important than how you get the consultant ready is you do all the legwork. All your successful service technicians have already said everything to the customer twice that the consultant's going to say when he gets there. You have to prevent the consultant from having to upsell because it won't work. You have to listen to your customer so much that they upsell themselves with things they want, things that they need. You already know, does their kid have asthma? You already know the system needs to be bigger. One example I gave earlier was like a heat pump. A lot of people think you can just replace the outdoor unit, walk away, fine. You have a 20-year-old indoor unit, brand new outdoor unit. It doesn't work that way. It's not going to be as efficient as the box says it's going to be. It's not going to dehumidify the way it's designed to. So you go ahead and tell the customer, and by the way, the whole thing has to be replaced. You have a heat pump system, and this is why it has to be replaced. You could use a UV light, with all the asthma and allergies you guys have. You need the better filtration system. He's not going to try to push that on you, but I'm going to let him know that these things bother you and just see what the price is. If you want it, get it. If you can't afford it, don't. We can always do it later. It'll just be a little bit more expensive than their department will do it.
And are you doing that? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Michael. Go ahead.
Yeah. You always want to make sure that the customer knows the more they do it one time and biting that bullet, it's going to be cheaper than doing it later, but we can do it later if you can't afford it now. The consultant should never have to say that. That should never have to come out of their mouth. It's a sales killer because that's what they feel like. They're there to sell them.
Mm-hmm. And you're saying that, and you do that because you recognize that the client looks at you as the expert. Is that right? Right. Is that why you're doing that? Because there's something there's something very psychological there. Share that.
Well, even if they don't think that you're the expert when you get there, if you're good at your job and you've been interested in them enough, by the time you leave, they had better feel like you're the expert. So yeah, you're the one they trust, or they probably don't trust you when you get there if they're a new customer. There's a lot of heat and air companies that have set a super bad example and the bar very low for us before we get there. And that actually makes you want their expectations to be sky high by the time you leave. So they trust you. Now if you've done your job correctly, now they're more calmed down about the consultant coming. And if that consultant's really good and he can spend more time on his relationship with the customer and getting to know the customer versus telling them what all they can upgrade and all these wonderful things they can do, then now he is just like you. And he is just somebody that they appreciate. They appreciate a sales guy being in their house. As weird as that sounds.
That's great. Okay, so I'm still on the call. Now the comfort advisor or the consultant has gone into the home and is wrapped up and taking care of that client. Now, what's that like? What's that interaction like after the salesperson or the consultant sells the job or gets them happily involved, and now they're calling you? What's that like? What's that teamwork like?
Yeah, it's usually them explaining what happened and thanking you 4 times, and then and then moving on to the next one. Yeah, but they follow up and let you know, thanks for saying this, thanks for that.
And how does that make you feel? Helped. How does that make you feel when they do that?
Oh, great. We got this young guy. He's our youngest one, the newest. He's a freaking rock star. You'll see his name one day. He just needs more experience under his belt. But Colby Brown is, man, when he calls you after a sale that you've just helped him with his family, man, you're pumped up. You're psyched up. You can't wait to get to the next one and hope Colby gets it, because he makes you feel like the only reason why it sold was because of you. When really you can watch the pattern and know no, dude, you're pretty good at this.
Sounds like,
but he always makes you feel like it's you.
Sounds like he's very intentional with his words and building people up. And
yes, super nice guy.
And does that make you want to work more for him and the rest of the comfort advisors when they do that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I got some that are my favorite because they're so funny, and I want to do really good if they're going, they all have something special about them if you'll just learn it instead of going, hey man, they need a duck. I'll talk to you later. Bye. Click. No, you need to talk to them like they're your brother. Build a relationship.
And what are some of the things that you're doing with the other technicians there at Ragsdale as a technician that's senior, has been there in the role over 20 years? What are you doing to keep things fresh and new for you with regards to the techs?
Well, my number one thing and the most fun thing is what I told you earlier, that when they have no clue you're saying it and they're not around, is the butting in and talking about how great they are to people. That's the funnest one. But then you have, and it's usually the younger guys, they'll call and say, hey man, I'm on this model, this make, tell me where I need to look. Or they'll say, this customer says they don't have any money and they can't afford it, but they really need a new one. What do I say? How would you word it? That it doesn't feed your ego, but it does help you feel pride that they chose you. There's 7 or 8 senior technicians that are smarter than I am, and they could have called them. But you always want to make sure that when somebody does something badass, that you saw that was badass. If you want to give them shout outs, and then whatever they did good, don't congratulate just them on what they did good. Tell at least, another person. You're walking through the shop, you shake his hand, give him a fist bump and be like, dude, I heard about your $40,000 sale. And then as another person comes out of the office, as you're walking through the shop, scream across the shop and be like, man, you hear this son gun got $40,000 sale? Things like that. That's, I appreciated that when I was less confident and just getting started.
Yeah, especially for those young technicians, right? The guys that are just starting out in their journey.
Yeah, young does not mean bad. Young's not a bad thing.
Do they? And how do they keep you young? How do they keep you energized?
By nipping at my tail all the time. It's not fun. It's not fun without competition like y'all's David out in California, David Rowe. I love watching him go from first place to third place to first place to second place. When it's a blowout, it's not fun.
That's exciting. Yes.
It really is. And then same thing internally. We got a guy named Taylor here that he's always nipping at my tail, always. So, you can't slack, you always have to be your best. You want to go home at 1:00, but then you're like, dang it, if I do that, Taylor's right behind me.
Yeah.
If I do that, Jacob's right behind me.
Yeah. For the viewers, it was difficult to find a time to get Michael in because he wanted to make sure he got it on his lunch, because we're in Atlanta time, so that he can make sure he ran his calls in the morning and he runs his calls in the afternoon. He's like, look at David Rowe and David Ureta are right on my tail. They're nipping at my, and it's like so good, so competitive, and but great spirit. That's, and I know you, Michael, having spent some time with you, you've got an abundancy mentality. Yes, you're competing, yet you're so willing to share.
Yeah.
Talk about that for a minute.
That's why I'm broke.
Yeah, exactly. You share. So that abundancy mentality, because you could either have a scarcity mentality or an abundancy mentality. The difference is, an abundancy mentality says there's plenty for all of us. I'm going to be taken care of. So let me continue to share. Let me continue to share the good news, give away all my secrets. And a scarcity mentality is one that runs off of fear and says, oh no, if I win or if they win, I'm going to lose. And and where do you fit in that spectrum? And how do you keep that attitude?
Well, that way of thinking is super toxic. The scarcity, there's no such thing as scarcity. Only if you let it be, unless you're on an island and there's one loaf of bread left, then you might be in a scarce situation. But perfect example is, Andy Holt. How I even met David Rowe was Andy Holt, the one from Outdoor University, called me and he said, "Hey man, this is before Booth was a part of our organization." And Andy's like, "Hey man, I got this young guy. He's a maintenance technician basically, but man, he's got so much promise." He was like, "Would you do me a favor and talk to him?" I said, "Yeah, man, tell him to call me sometime." And, well, no, I said, well, let me get back to you at that. And I already knew, Art and Wayne were best friends. So I knew he wouldn't have a problem, but I still had to ask Art. I said, "Hey, Art, Andy called me with another technician from another company. He's from Booth." And he laughs and he's like, "Hey, you don't think I already know about that phone call?" But anyways, so David called me and man, I just gave him everything that I knew. And like I said, I stole from him too. I'd make sure I say, "I hear you," or "I got you" there constantly. So I stole some too, but I gave him all my secrets. And most of this year he's been beating me, but we love it. We call each other and I'm like, "Dude, if you beat me by more than $40,000, I'm going to whip your tail, man." I'm like, "We are not staying 3 days later in Nashville this year. I will go home on time." If you beat me, it better not be by much.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Let me ask you this. When people are sitting around their dinner table and they talk about Michael Mullins, what do you want them to remember you for? And what do you want them to be talking about?
Remember me for? I hope they remember me for my dedication to my family. I want them to talk about how giving and selfless I was. And I hope every one of them says, "Well, we know he's in heaven." Yeah, that's. I guess that's really it. That's my main goals in life.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I hope they say.
You've demonstrated that in so many different ways, Michael, and it's been so great to have you on today. Yeah. And thank you for all that you do for Ragsdale. Thank you for all that you do for Wrench, because you are an inspiration. You're an inspiration to me. You're an inspiration to many technicians out there. And it really is a gift that you have. And sometimes in leading up to this, sometimes I thought like, okay, so Michael is a fish that has no idea what water is. He's a fish in water, like a fish can't see water.
Oh, yeah.
Like you almost don't even know what your success is. You're that good. So I appreciate you really digging and being able to share some of those secrets that are game changers, are superpowers.
Yeah.
So there's young techs out there. There's some veterans out there. What would you say that you'd like to leave your fellow team members and specifically technicians inside Wrench with? What kind of message would you like to leave them?
Any type of message? Let's see. If cut your own path, even if you don't even see an avenue there, just start cutting away. Cut your own path. If you can't find an open door, then kick the damn wall down. I hate people that use the word or words, uncontrollable situation, because it makes no sense. situation is a present term. You can't control an event because an event is always past term. You're in the situation. It's the present, which means that the future is yours. I don't care what calls you're getting. I don't care if you were hired yesterday. I don't care if you're the guy getting pulled backwards out of a crawl space because you're the only one that could fit. If you're sweeping the floors, kick the damn wall down. Make your own future. Stop listening to people around you gripe about the calls they're getting. Stop listening to the people griping about the hours they're working. Just quit watching the weather. I don't care if the high is 70 and the low is 69. Look where you live. The weather's against you. Don't let other people make excuses for you. There's no such thing as an uncontrollable situation because you're in that moment. You fix that moment, not everybody else, not your manager, not your coworkers, not your spouse. Just do it. That's how I tell my kids, nothing is a real challenge if everything is a challenge. If you make everything a challenge. My kid's shoe breaks. I challenge myself to go that night and buy him a new pair of shoes. If the weather sucks, I challenge myself to do great anyways. When I told you I don't stress out about anything, I don't stress out about anything because I view everything as a challenge. A word of advice to the other guys that has helped my soul and makes this fun for me. Every day, pick 2 people, make them smile that wasn't expecting you to make them smile. You can do more than 2, but 2. Pick 2. Purposely pick 2. And the next thing you know, you won't even have to pick 2. You just try to find a way to make whoever smile when you walk in their office. You walk in their cubicle. You walk in their door. Even if on your days off, you're at Walmart, stop and cut a joke about with a guy that's standing there finding out what bread he wants to buy. Or tell him how awesome his shoes are. You know what I mean? Make somebody smile. Even when it embarrasses you. My wife hates it. My wife hates that so much. Because I'll be loud. I say my thank yous loud. You say your thank yous loud because it's not for people to notice how polite you are. You say your thank yous loud because say you got a new girl that's in a cubicle outside of a manager's office. She's been there for 2 weeks, but she's noticed for 2 weeks that every person that comes out of that manager's office, that person's saying thank you. So that CSR, that dispatcher is going to think that manager must be nice. It must be a nice person. But if something's going south for them, you know what they're really going to think? They're going to think she can help me. Everybody tells her thank you. Something about her is helpful. The lady that hands you your food at Chick-fil-A, say your thank you loud so that everybody else knows that's a helpful person. They done something to help you. But just forge your own path.
Michael.
I have advice for you guys, though.
Tell me. Give it to us.
Managers, owners. So, earlier when I was telling you about how Sam and I grew up outnumbered in the hood, if I was the one doing the hiring, I would ask every employee, can you tell me about your childhood? And listen to their answers. If they say it sucked, or if they say it was really hard, then they follow up with, but it's good now. Hire that person. I don't care. Hire them because they have made their own path at some point in time. Some point in time, they fought to get to a better life. And that means they're going to fight for you too. It's not a coincidence that Sam and I grew up a couple of houses from each other and we're doing $4 to $6 million a year. It's not a coincidence. So that's my advice to you guys.
So good. So good. Got great advice for people in wrench, technicians, now managers. That's great. I love it. Michael, thank you. Thank you. And you're such an inspiration. It is so easy for me to see why for the last 4 years since we've had the GOAT Awards, you've been the top person in the whole country with the amount of awards that you've earned. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to do this today. You were terrific. I want to thank Amanda who's in the studio with me. And just appreciate once again, Michael, all that you're willing to share We look forward to seeing you in Nashville.
Well,
We're super excited for that.
Hold on before you get away, because I want to tell you something that you unintentionally did that has gave me my proudest moment. So you shared your first podcast with me, right? So I shared that podcast with my children. And when they got done, I asked them. So I asked Lawson, the youngest, I'm like, he's very slick on his feet. He's very cunning. So when it was over, I said, Lawson, so how does it make you feel hearing people on the other side of the country say your dad's name? And he stopped and he looked over and instantly he goes, it's wow. Because you said the wow podcast.
I love it. Oh, please tell Lawson he made my day.
But then that's not the proudest moment. The proudest moment is I let my 16-year-old listen to it. And after he got done watching the podcast, I said, son, how does it make you feel hearing people on the other side of the country say your dad's name? And he stopped and he was like, I don't know. He said, it's just dad. That's huge. And no, seriously, that's huge, because when I told you I wanted to set a better example for my children to motivate, I have earned the right for them to expect me to win. I have earned the right for my children to expect that I'm going to be the best I can be, that failure is not an option. I didn't know that until you mentioned my name. I didn't feel that way. But when he said, it's just dad, my sister-in-law makes custom t-shirts, and the next one I order from her will say, it's just dad. And I appreciate that, man. You have no clue what that did for me.
Oh, Michael, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Just another gift. Just another gift.
It was big.
So we're going to close out this episode. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the goat of all goats, Michael Mullins. And I just want to finish by sharing with you that the key to all of this, the key to continuing to be successful, is to always make your future bigger than your past. So signing off today, I'll say this. Team Wrench, here's to a bigger future. Thank you very much.
To a bigger future. I love you guys.
Thanks, brother. Love you too.